Hey, how you doing? Today, I thought we'd talk about one of the trips I had on the carrier where we visited Italy. And that was pretty common. That port of Naples that we used to go to, almost every cruise, at least once, we were in Naples, Italy. So you have to realize a carrier, when we pull into port, it's not like you think you pull into port. It's not like, you just dock the boat there and jump off and you're on the pier and there you go. Most ports that we visited weren't set up. They weren't deep enough for a carrier to pull into. And depending on where it was, we didn't pull in, we anchored out. So what we did with the carrier was we would just drop anchor a few miles out from the port. And then we would have these, we used to call them Jon Boats. They were smaller boats that, you could maybe fit 80 guys or so on these Jon Boats. And they were just small wooden boats, with basically one or two props on the back, and no covers or anything. They were just open to the weather, and like 80 guys at a time would go off of one of the sponsons down this ladder and onto the Jon Boat. So, and of course, we didn't just have one of those Jon Boats that we carried. They could be running easily 5 or 6 of the Jon Boats. But it could take, from the time you got onto the Jon Boat, it could take 8 or 10 minutes easily to get into the port, where what we called fleet landing. That's where the Jon Boats would pull up against a pier, and then all the guys would offload, and the Jon Boat would head back to the carrier and get more people, and just keep circling. So one time when we pulled into Naples, like I was saying, the lines on a carrier were long, to say the least, to get off of the boat. So let's say we typically carried like 5,000 guys. So maybe 2.5, 3,000 guys are trying to get off of the ship and into the port. Now, of course, that's not going to happen right away. So let's say we dropped anchor at 6 in the morning, for example. There's already a line on the hangar bay to get off of the ship. There's no way around that. And these lines were huge. They would wrap around the entire hangar bay at times. It was nothing to take 5 or 6 hours in line to get off the ship. But, when you've been at sea for a month or more, sometimes 2 months, what else are you going to do? So first thing in the morning, let's say we knew we were going to drop anchor at 6, let's say, for example. The hangar bay is going to be flooded with people right away trying to get off. So you try to pace it a little bit, let part of the line go down, which wasn't very effective because everybody else had the same idea. So get ready, get in some civilian clothes or something, whichever one you were going to wear. We could either wear a uniform off ship, or we could wear the civilian clothes off ship. Didn't matter either way. So this one particular time, me and a couple of my guys from my division, maybe 5 of us, said, okay, we're going to meet at 10 o'clock down on the hangar bay and get in the line and get ready to get off the ship. Okay. Now remember, the line was starting at 6 in the morning, so some of the guys, of course, were already off the ship. They were already in port. So we go through the line, 5-6 hours, whatever it takes, get to where the Jon Boats are, get down that plank, get on the Jon Boat, and head over to port. Now, we weren't in port and off of the Jon Boat very long, maybe 10 minutes. We were walking out into the city, and like a 10-minute walk. And we looked down the one road, and we're like, we know that guy, and he's not doing real good. He's staggering around a bit, you know. Obviously, he got to port ahead of us and already had quite a few drinks under his belt. So we get closer and closer, and sure as hell, it's Mad Dog. Mad Dog was one of the guys in our division who worked with us on the radar systems and stuff. And he's swaying all over the place. And right behind him, we see 2 officers walking toward him. So we pick up the pace a little bit to try to get to Mad Dog before those 2 officers get to him, because it doesn't look good when you're staggering around in a foreign port like Naples, and the officers are going to get him back to the ship, and possibly he'd end up at captain's mast. So we're like, no, we got to take care of this. So we pick up the pace, and we get to Mad Dog before the 2 officers. They were like maybe 10 or 15 feet away by the time we got to Mad Dog. And so we take him, get one of his arms around our necks, you know, and we're like trying to act like we're giving him hell, because the officers, we know the officers are coming to reprimand him. So they get to where we are, and they're like, you know, this guy, there's a problem here. Why is he obviously drunk in the streets, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah, this is no good. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take him back to the ship and make sure he gets himself cleaned up. So when you are doing that, you have to make sure you're sounding very official and everything else. And we're like, yes, sir, this doesn't look good. This is making a bad impression of us American sailors, and we're not happy with this, and we're going to give him hell and everything else. And so the officers fully expect, oh, this is great. These other guys from his division are looking out for each other. That's exactly what we want. So we got his arms around us, and we're walking him back so he doesn't look like he's staggering. And we let the officers outpace us. So as we're walking along real slow, the officers are gaining ground, and they're going out the one road and down around the other corner. Now, our limitation of what we would do for fellow shipmates only goes so far. Yes, we saved him from possibly getting busted, and definitely from a captain's mast, and from those other officers writing him up. But once those other two officers were out of view, we turned around with him and walked back toward the city, because we didn't just spend 5 or 6 hours of our morning in line on the hangar bay waiting to get onto shore to turn around and march him back to the ship and then have to get in line again to get back on shore. No, that's not how it went. But what we did do was make sure they were out of view, walked with him down the street, down a side road, found a nice, fluffy, full set of bushes, shoved him into the bushes deep enough that he could sleep it off, and told him, when you get sober, you'll thank us for this. And off we went into the town. At least there, the officers weren't going to see him in the situation he was in. He could sleep it off. He'll wake up a few hours later. He'll be fine. And we'll talk about that when we get back to the ship the next day. So we dropped him off, hightailed it back down that road into the main drag that goes into town. Went in there, had a good time in the evenings, having dinner and everything else. Perfectly fine. We might have got back to Fleet Landing around midnight or 1 in the morning. Caught the Jon Boat back to the ship. Turn around, do the same thing the next day. But like I said, it only goes so far with shipmates. And the things you're willing to do and sacrifice for your fellow people when you know, this will work out fine. And it did. So until the next time, take care of yourself, and I'll see you later.